Howdy, everyone. This is kind of silly, but I have a really dramatic story that I want to tell to so many people. So instead of having to call each one of you motherfuckers individually, I decided that I'm just going to make this video of me telling the story once, and then I'll just send it to all of you and we can discuss individually after. So, ready to go on a wild ride with me? This is going to be insane. You have no idea what you're about to hear me talk about. But it will be entertaining, and I promise it is worth the watch. But yeah, I literally feel like, you know that Call Her Daddy video where Alex Cooper's like, this is my truth. This is what really happened. That's exactly what I feel like. I'm like, this is the truth behind me and Alanis Segura. So buckle up and get ready because this is actually absurd. This is just really coincidental, but anyone who knows me knows that I've been flirting with the idea of starting a podcast for a very long time. And it's really funny because the girl that this is about was like my biggest advocate for starting a podcast. And she always was like, please just do it. I'll do all the marketing. I'll help you. I'll edit. I'll whatever. Like, just do it. So here you go. Shout out Alanis. This episode is dedicated to you. And this is the beginning of my podcast. Most of you who are close with me already know the background of this story, but I'll get into it a little bit just to kind of like lay the groundwork and tell some of the important facts and introduce the characters. Just sit tight. It will be worth it, I promise. So, most of you guys know that I moved to New York City in September, and I found a Facebook Marketplace listing for an apartment that was a 2-bedroom apartment in the East Village that had one of the bedrooms for rent. One of the bedrooms was shared by 2 girls, Leo and Alanis. And they shared the bigger bedroom. The smaller bedroom was for rent. Starting in August, I decided to move in September. I was still starting paying rent starting August 22nd of last year. And so I moved into the city. It was my first time moving to New York. And at first, like, everything was awesome. And I've had random roommates from Facebook before when I lived in Charleston, and I loved those boys that I lived with. So I was like, what can go wrong? This time it's girls. Like, it's going to be awesome. So I move in the summer, and immediately we all get along. It was so fun. They're kind of like hermits though. Like, they kind of stayed in their room, and like they liked to kind of like smoke weed and order DoorDash and just stay home. And I'm not super like that. But you know, to each their own. Like, when I was home, we got along. I like cooked a lot of dinners for us, and you know, it just like, it felt right. It was a good time. I ended up going back home to Colorado in October for a week. And because the 2 of them shared the bedroom, I was like, if one of you guys wants to use my room while I'm gone, go for it. Like, I had known these girls for less than a month, and I was just like, you know, I feel bad. Like, I have this whole ass room to myself. I'm not just going to tell you can't stay in it. So Alanis ended up staying in the room the whole time that I was in Colorado, which I was like, so fair. Like, get after it. No need to share a bedroom when we have 2. Anyways, so everything was good until October when Leo ended up having like a crazy mental breakdown. She like literally like, I wasn't home when this happened. It was just her and Alanis, but she was like speaking with the voice of her dead grandmother and then like whispering and being like, I have to talk really quietly or they're going to take away my tongue and I won't be able to say anything. So you have to listen really carefully. And like, it was, hearing Leo talk about it, it was like, oh my gosh, this woman is like actually possessed. Like, it was so like absurd, something that you literally see happen in a movie. And like, her dad was on the phone trying to decide if she needed to go to the hospital, and then she was like screaming, being like, hang up the phone, he's the devil, he's in on it with the devil. Crazy. So she went to the mental hospital. She was in there for like 2 weeks, and then she got out and ended up going home to Dubai for like 2 months with her parents. And so it was just me and Alanis in the apartment. And me and Alanis got on amazingly. We would like go volunteer together, go to dinner together, go out together, go thrift shopping together, like watch movies at night together. We had the 2 bedrooms, but we'd have sleepovers in the same bedroom. And like, we just had a grand old time. And then come winter time, I brought her home with me for Christmas. She literally like came to Colorado with me. Like, my parents bought her Christmas presents. We like went to an Avalanche game together, drove up to Breckenridge, like met a bunch of my college friends, saw where I used to work, met a bunch of my like friends from high school that still live in Colorado, like met my friends' parents, went to everyone's houses. Like, we had a great time. My parents were like, we love her. She can come back anytime. Like, it was awesome. She loved Colorado. And then we get back, and in January, Leo was moving back to the city, but bringing her boyfriend from Dubai. So they ended up moving into a place in Brooklyn together, because originally my lease was supposed to end in January, and Leo wanted the boyfriend to move in when I left. And then Alanis was like, I actually don't want to move in with like you and your boyfriend. So maybe you guys should find your own place. So they went and found their own place in Brooklyn, and one of my really good friends and one of my old roommates from college, Sophia, had been living in Costa Rica for a few months over the winter, but was interested in coming to the city for a little bit to like do some modeling. She'd sign a contract and whatever. So I was like, Sophie, come, we have an extra room. It'll be so fun. You can bring your cat. We'll be roommates again. We'll be in the city again, or not again, but we'll be in the city now. It'll be awesome. So Sophie signs on and she's like, okay. So me and Alanis decide to switch rooms at this point. I'd been paying $1,500 plus utilities, so $1,600 for the smaller room that was single, and Alanis was in the double room. So because my friend was moving in, we were gonna do a switch, and she goes, I pay $1,350 in that room, so that's what you and Sophie can pay. So I'm like, perfect. Sophie pays her deposit, I start paying less rent. I'm like, this is awesome. Move into the bigger room with the two of us. And then as soon as Sophie moved in, I could tell that me and Alanis were getting less close because I kind of like, this sounds bad, but I kind of like needed her less. Like when it was just the two of us in the apartment, we'd spend a ton of time together. But now that Sophie's like one of my best friends and she's here, we started spending a ton of time together. And I just kind of noticed, I was like, damn, like if Alanis isn't like, if I don't make an effort to go into her bedroom and like say hi, like I could go days without seeing her. Like she just sat in her room, worked online, smoked weed, ordered DoorDash for dinner every night, and like kind of didn't really put in an effort to like maintain our friendship that we had before. But that was kind of fine by me. Like I'd been getting closer with a lot of different people in the city, and like I had Sophie, I was working my job, so I was kind of like, you know, whatever, we're just doing our own thing. So Alanis goes to leave for 2 months, for March and April. Our lease was ending in May. And I had decided that I was going to go back to Colorado for all of May to like bartend grad season at the bar I worked at in Boulder and like see my friends and family and just kind of have like a little bit of a break from the city. So when Alanis goes to leave at the beginning of March, I think it was March 1st, the first thing that happened, the first domino to fall, was that literally in the middle of the night, at like 1 a.m. the last night that she was in town, she had Leo come over and take all of the pots and pans because they had been Leo's from when she was living there. This is fine that they belonged to Leo and that she wanted them. What really bothered me is that Alanis didn't say anything. So Alanis leaves at like 6 a.m. for her flight. I wake up, I go to the gym, I have like 10 minutes to get home, make lunch, go to work. And I get home and I go to make lunch and there's no pots and no pans. And it's not like I had a heads up that was like, hey, by the way, Leo's taking all of these. So like, you're not gonna have any, like if you want new pots and pans, you should buy some. So that just had me like pissed off at the beginning. So I sent Alanis a text kind of being like, dude, like that was kind of uncool that you like had her take all of the pots and pans and didn't say anything. Like that's kind of a ridiculous way to treat someone. Not to mention that Alanis had called me that morning at 6 a.m. before her flight and been like crying, being like, I'm running late and my Lyft app isn't loading. Can you please call me a Lyft? And I did, and like she Venmoed me back and everything, but I was like, you just asked me for this favor at like 6 a.m, knowing that you had screwed me over with the pots and pans and knowing that I just hadn't woken up to see it yet. So that was just the first thing that I was like pissed off about. And then she had locked us out of her bedroom. So that also set me off because she was trying to sublease it to someone when she left, a random. So I was like, okay, you would let a random have access to this, but me and Sophie, who you're friends with, who I let you stay in that room when it was mine, you're gonna lock us out, just pissed me off. I had an interview that day, so I went and I unlocked her room, which was also stupid because she knows I have the keys to it. Like, I guess that was shady of me to like not really respect her space, but you're not gonna feel bad about that when you hear what happened. So I walk into the room, trashed. Mind you, Alanis was gonna be gone for 2 months, trashed. 3 or 4 bags of half-eaten DoorDash trash in the room. Literally, like, clothing bomb had gone off. The window was completely open, no screen, not locked. We have a fire escape. So I'm like, not only can a homeless person climb up and get in here, but we're about to get rats, mice, bugs, spiders, birds, bats. Like, what? There's like a half-drink Arizona iced tea that's gonna be filled with flies and like a bunch of dirty dishes that I'm like, you locked these in here so we can't use them in the kitchen. Like, it was just so disrespectful to me that it just felt like she was like, oh, well, if I'm not gonna be there, it doesn't fucking matter. So then Alanis, I did my interview in her room and she FaceTimes me while we're in there. Well, I'm in there. And it was funny, I was like, oh, I'm about to do an interview, but I'm like, she totally fucking knows that I'm in here. Like, I don't know what fucking psycho voodoo shit she has going on, but she knows. And so I started kind of avoiding her because I was like pissed off about this, like the way that she treated me, because I was kind of like, that's not how you treat a friend. Like, that's how you treat a random roommate. But I thought that we were friends by now. So I was like, you know what? If you want to treat me like a random roommate, we can treat each other like random roommates. Like, I'll play that game. So I started kind of like avoiding her, and she's like, it's an emergency, please call me. It's an emergency, please call me. And I'm like, this is over the course of like 4 days. I'm like, baby, you can call me or you can text me. Like, it's clearly not that deep if you're like, please call me, please call me, please call me. So then finally one day I call her and she like makes up some lie about how there's like a letter in her room that her dad needs immediately. And I'm like, once again, he doesn't need it immediately, or you would have texted me about this days ago or called me, whatever, left a voicemail. So I was kind of like, yeah, I can do it later, like blew her off. And then she ended up like getting really annoyed about it and calling Sophia and having Sophia go look for it in the room. Of course, there's no letter. And she sends Sophia on this like wild goose chase on FaceTime around her room being like, there's a yellow letter, like, no, look here, look there. I don't know where it could be, but like, if I think about it, I'll let you know. Also, I didn't have time to take the trash out before I left, so can you take out all that trash and close the window and lock it? And so I was just like, dude, why didn't you just like own up to that and just send a text message right when you left and be like, hey, heads up, Leo took all the pots and pans, I was running late, I didn't have a chance to take care of my trash, if you guys can grab that for me, would appreciate it. Done. Also, a side note, I had heard Alanis lie multiple times when she knew that I knew the truth, and she was like lying to someone else about something, and I remember being like, it's kind of like a weird thing to lie about. Like, I don't know why she's like making shit up like that. And I remember making a mental note and being like, Alanis lies. So I knew that this yellow letter thing was like a lie. So whatever. I was pissed off. And this, by now I was like, okay, Alanis, realistically, she has my deposit, which is $1,500. And she has Sophie's deposit, which is $1,350. And I'm kind of like, she's starting to do shady shit. And I don't really trust her. And she's treating me like poorly. And I can tell that the way that she's treating me has changed. So I don't know if I trust her to give me this money back. And quite frankly, I'm pissed off at her. So me and Sophie start brainstorming, and I had wanted to leave in May anyways to go back to Colorado. So I'm like, Sophie, what I think we do is we just tell her to keep our deposit as our last month of rent, and we'll move out at the end of April. Mind you, this whole time, our subleases are technically illegal. Like, we didn't go through the landlord. We just signed like a roommate agreement with Alanis. But I started doing a little bit of research just to understand what my rights were in case she was like, you need to move out tomorrow when we tell her this. And in New York, if you live somewhere for 30 days, you have squatter's rights, which means literally even if a homeless person moves into like someone's apartment while they're gone, if they stay for 30 days, they have legal rights to live there in New York City. So I'm like, we're fine, we can't get evicted, well, we could get evicted, but they would have to go through the full legal process, even though we don't technically have a lease here. So after like literally wrestling with this for like weeks, like texting everyone, my therapist, my mom, my dad, my friends, being like, I think this is what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But like, I just have very little faith that she's gonna give me this money back. And to me, $1,500 is a lot of money. So me and Sophie tell her, and we're like, hey, heads up. Like, we're like, keep our security deposit, we're gonna leave, but like, we're not paying you any more money. You can keep the money of ours that you already have, but we're not paying you anything else. She did not like this. And she basically started like texting like frantically being like, well, if you're not going to pay, then you can leave. Simple as that. And my big thing was that I didn't want to fight with her over text. And I was like, look, if you want to get on a phone call, I'm more than happy to like speak to you about this and how it's actually like mutually beneficial because you have our money and you can use it to pay rent. And then you don't have to move back in and move in with people who now were like on bad terms. But I'm not going to fight with you over text. I was like, I'm not going to go back and forth sending paragraphs and shit. Like, if you want to call me, let's call. So we scheduled like 3 different calls with her while she was gone, and she literally wouldn't show up to any of them. When we were trying to schedule the most recent call with her, she was like making this big deal about how she was going to be in Mexico for a wedding. The whole time Sophia's in Costa Rica visiting her boyfriend, and she's willing to make time for it. So Alanis was like, rent is due, and if you don't pay me, you can get out. And I was like, Alanis, we're not paying you any money until we talk. And she was like, well, I can't talk until the 4th. And I was like, okay, well, if you're expecting to get paid on the 1st, just understand that because our position has not changed and we're still planning on not paying you. So make time. Sophie was literally in Costa Rica postponing dinner with her boyfriend, and we literally sent a Zoom link to be like, log on to the Zoom link because Sophia's in a foreign country and she's making time that we can all talk. And Alanis texts us like 10 minutes into when the call is supposed to be happening being like, guys, honestly, like I just got baked and I just like would rather go get snacks with my friends right now than have this conversation. Like, I just want to protect my peace. So like, I'm deciding that like, Car, you can stay until the 22nd because technically my lease started August 22nd. And Sophie, you can stay until the 1st and then give me the keys and leave. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm glad that you're like kind of finally seeing our side of things, that like this is kind of what's going to happen. Like, we weren't asking her, we were kind of saying like this is how it's going to work. And I was like, I love that. Great. I am going to be staying till the 1st. I will not be moving out on the 22nd, but I'm just glad that we're on the same page. And I was like, you'll be gone anyways. So like, it really isn't going to make a difference to you. Don't worry. I'll be gone before you get back because I don't want to live with you either at this point, babe. We like move on with our lives. We like spend a few weeks just, living our best lives in New York. Like we were having a great time. The apartment's way better with 2 people in it. Like the stress was gone about like, is she going to try to kick us out? Blah, blah, blah. And there had been times where she had like, didn't really understand that there were laws in place that like governed the situation aside from just our roommate agreement. Like we had this like fucking 300-word roommate agreement that she was treating like it was gospel. And I was like, look, that applies to an extent. But there's also laws. Like you can't just text us and be like, you need to move out tomorrow or else. Like that's illegal. Like you need to like either mutually end a lease or you need to evict someone. And I did research on the eviction process and I nanny for a guy who was a lawyer. So I was talking to him about all of this and he's giving me advice. So I'm like, I'm very, very solid on my position here and the fact that like I cannot be removed from this dwelling without legal action. Fast forward to what was now last week. I spent Thursday and Friday in Massachusetts to see my grandma. And there had been, the broker had come in and done a video tour and she had like taken pictures of the apartment. So by now she's seen the cat that Sophie had living with us. She obviously can see that there's 3 beds in the apartment. So I was like, everyone's on the same page here. Everything's fine. They're going to lease this out for when we move out. No worries. So I'm in Massachusetts at my grandma's house and Sophie starts texting me. She's like, bro, people are in the apartment. People are here. I don't know what's going on. And she's like, it's Alanis. And she showed back up randomly at the beginning of April when she wasn't supposed to be back until May. And Sophie talks to her, is like, hey, like, what's up? And she's like, yeah, I got an email, like, we're being evicted. She's like, I don't know, they either found out about the cat or like the illegal sublease, but like, we're being evicted. We need to be out completely by Monday. Like, I'm going to be gone by Sunday. And so Sophie calls me freaking out and she's like, what the fuck is happening? Like, we're being evicted. And then I was like, wait, no, we're not. This is completely fake. Alanis is clearly lying about this. The first thing we said was like, cool, can you give us the phone number of the person who's trying to evict us? And she's like, yeah, of course. Doesn't send us a phone number. Can you send us the email that says that we've been evicted? Yeah, of course. Doesn't send the email. So I'm like, Sophie, this is bullshit. Also, it takes like a 30-second Google search to find out that you cannot evict people by email in New York City. Like, it needs to be certified mail. There needs to be notice. Like, it needs to be 30 days. Then you need to go to court. You need to get actually evicted. And then like the fucking sheriff or the marshal needs to come and remove you. And if your landlord tries to remove you, like, you can recover triple damages. So I was like, the landlord's not going to do shit. And like, once again, squatters' rights. This is all fake and we're fine. So Alana spends the whole weekend moving out. And I know that it must have pissed her off that we're just posted up, like going to work, living our best lives, like have not packed a single thing. And then Saturday morning comes and we wake up to an email forwarded to us by Alanis. It's actually absurd. It was forwarded us to Alanis from an email that was claiming to be our landlord, whose name I had never learned until I received this email because, as I said, all that I had was like a sublease agreement with Alanis. And so it was like protonmail.com, and then it was like this email that like was using all of these like fancy words and like jargon that I was like, it totally just sounds like someone trying to like act professional and like send a scary email. So the first thing, and there's a phone number at the bottom, which was so silly because in the email it says like, feel free to contact me via email. And I'm like, this whole time I've made this whole stink about how I only want to communicate with you on the phone. You don't think the first thing that I'm going to do is ring that phone number in the email signature? So I call it and it's disconnected. I Google it and it's attached to a Facebook page of a woman running for Salem, Massachusetts City Council in 2019. So I was like, red flag. This is a fake email. Not to mention, you can't even evict people by email. Anyways, then we have the landlord's first and last name now and the company that she works for. So we go Google it, and again, in all of 20 seconds, we find her real phone number. Give her a call. It's a weekend. She doesn't answer. I shoot her a text, and I'm like, hi, I have an email claiming to be you. I'm trying to see if it's legitimate. Can you confirm whether or not this is your email address? And copy the email address in. She texts back almost immediately and goes, no. What is this regarding? I'm like, oh, it's regarding a sublease in New York City that like we suspect is a scam. And she goes, yeah, that is a scam. That's not me. So me and Sophie are like, we're home free, no worries. This is all a big fat lie. Like, this is insane that she did that, but it's a lie and we're fine and we can stay. So again, we go about our lives. We're like blasting music. We're like playing doses and mimosas and like pre-gaming fucking brunch with our friends. And we're just like, I know that this must piss her off, that like, we know it's fake. So we don't respond to the email. We don't text her. We don't say anything because we're like, we know the truth. She texts us that afternoon around like 4 or 5 and it's like, just a friendly reminder, the apartment needs to be completely empty by 11 a.m. on Monday. Like there's going to be in the inspection then, new tenants move in next week. Which I was like, funny, because those are all details that were not said in this email. But we were like, oh, don't worry, we're in touch with Chris directly. Like, we have it all sorted. Thinking we're gonna like suss her out. Be like, yeah, you should be scared. We got in contact with the real Chris and not your stupid fake email. And so then I also texted Chris after Alana sent that text. And I was like, hi, like, I actually want to hop on a phone call with you about this email so we can confirm what's true and what's not. Like, let me know when you have time. Because I'm like, the last thing that I want is for Alanis to have told them that we're going to move out. And then the landlord actually has tenants coming the next week, even though like this eviction mail is fake. The landlord doesn't text me back. She doesn't call me. So I'm kind of like, whatever. Sunday night, I get a text from Leo, the original roommate. Around 11 p.m., she texts me, she goes, I'm going to come by the house at 1 a.m. and I'm going to grab a few things. I have the keys. And I was like, that's kind of late to be coming over. How about you come over in the morning? And she was like, no, has to be now. I have a rental car. Like, I need to come now. And I was like, yeah, we're not really comfortable with people just like coming in and out of the house at that hour. What do you need from the house? We can put it in the hallway for you. She sends this like really vague sus email or text message being like, I don't know exactly what it is. Like, it's stuff that needs to be looked for and gone through. And I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly where it is. Like, it has to be me. Like, I'm going to be there in a few minutes. And I'm like, in what fucking world would you text someone? I'm going to come over to your house at 1 a.m. I have the keys. I'm going to let myself in. I'm going to go look through some stuff that I can't tell you what it is and take stuff with me. Like, no, I'm not gonna have you coming in and searching my apartment at 1 in the fucking morning, dude, when this situation is already sketchy and I already don't trust any of you guys. So I told her, I was like, look, you can come in the morning, we can schedule a time for you to pick it up, but like, you're not coming in and searching my house right now. So we deadbolt the door out and she still fucking shows up and we hear her trying to get into our apartment. Also, mind you, Leo's like here on a visa, like she's not an American citizen. So I'm like, that's kind of bold because this is now like an attempted robbery perhaps, a breaking and entering perhaps, which are like felonies and like, I don't know. I was just like, this is all absurd and ridiculous. So I sent her a text in the morning basically being like, hi, like, sorry, I fell asleep early. But if you want to schedule another time to, and then she ended up, when she came and tried to unlock it and we weren't answering, she ended up texting me being like, I just need the microwave and a computer monitor. And I'm like, funny, it's almost like those are two things that you know exactly what they are, where they are, and that I could put them outside for you and we could avoid this. So then I texted her being like, if you want to schedule a time that you can come when we're both home, like, let's do that. Or I can leave them in the hallway for you. But like, just because somebody gave you keys to my apartment, I just want you to know that that doesn't mean that you're going to be allowed like in and out whenever you want to. Like, that just puts me and my belongings at risk. And like, that's not how this is going to go. Anyways, Monday rolls around. We stay until 11. All of our friends are like joking around, like texting us being like, happy eviction day. We're like, can't wait. We stay until 11 when she said the inspection was going to be. No one shows up. So we're like, whatever, go to the gym, go to work, like go about our day. And I'm at work, driving around my nanny family, and I get a call from Chris, who's the landlord. And I'm like, oh, she's just calling me back from when I sent that text being like, please call me. But I was driving. So then when I get to soccer practice with Benin, I like check my phone and there's a voicemail. And it's basically like, this apartment is still full of stuff. You were supposed to have it empty. Like, please call me. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, they actually did show up thinking the apartment was going to be empty. So I call her back. I'm literally outside of Benin's like soccer practice. And she's like, are you staying at this apartment? And I'm like, yep. And she's like, it's supposed to be empty. And I was like, so here's the thing. I told her about the fake eviction notice and I was like, Alanis like technically did tell us that we had to be out, but I was the one that texted you and confirmed that this email was fake. So we thought that because the email was fake, that meant that everything was fake. This woman had no idea that Alanis was subleasing the place out. Alanis had stopped paying April rent. She didn't pay anything. And she had emailed the landlord asking for a lease break, saying that she was going to be out and the apartment was going to be empty by Monday, which I was like, that was also bold on Alanis's part to just think that it was going to be empty. And so at first this woman's like, well, if you want to stay there, you have to pay rent. Like, I don't have rent for April, so you have to pay if you want to be there tonight. And I was like, no, babe, like, I'm not on the lease. And she was like, well, you better go after Alanis and her dad and go get your money back. Because Alanis was the only person on the lease and her dad was the guarantor. So I was like, sorry, Chris, but like, once again, I'm not on the lease. I have no obligation to pay for this apartment. Like, you better go after Alanis and her dad. You better go get your money. And so I think that as soon as she kind of realized that, like, I knew what I was talking about, she like kind of took a deep breath, and I told her, I was like, look, we're not trying to become squatters in your apartment. We're already planning on moving out by the end of April, but basically Alanis showed back up. She's been lying to you this whole time. She's been lying to us this whole time. The woman could not believe that I'd been living there since September. Woman was like shook, like she had no idea what to say. And I was basically like, I'm at work right now, but like she was like, I need you to send me an email with everything. And I was like, can do. So I sent her an email with screenshots of the Facebook Marketplace listing, text messages of Leo and Alanis confirming that I was going to move in as their third roommate, both of the sublease agreements that I paid for the first bedroom, and then again when we switched bedrooms. And then I forwarded her the fake eviction email that Alanis made in her name, which also threatened legal action. So I was like, I'm sure this woman's gonna be thrilled to know that you were using her name attached to her company to threaten legal action against people living in her building. Psychopath. So anyways, I'm like, Sophie gets home from work before I do. We're not locked out. Our stuff's all still there. So we're like, okay, deep breath, like, you know, we're going to work through this, but once again, we know that we have these like squatters' rights. Like, we're going to try to be cooperative and like make sure everybody kind of gets what they want, but like, we know that we're legally allowed to stay. That was Monday. Tuesday morning, we wake up to a knock on the door at 7 a.m., which I know that a lot of you probably have jobs and wake up before then. I mean, me and Sophie have jobs, like she's a waitress and I'm a nanny. So like, we're not waking up at 7 a.m. I literally get out of bed. My hair is like this. I have like my fucking titties swinging with no bra on and my like pantaloons because my fucking sweatpants are up to my knees. And I open the door and it's the supervisor, the super Joe. And he is like a fucking Sopranos mob member, if I could describe him. Like Italian with the accent, the slicked back hair, the chain on, like the whole, all of the cologne, the whole thing. And he's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, hi, like I live here. And he's like, this is supposed to be empty. He was like, I have people coming to move in next week. And I was like, here we fucking go. So I tell him the same story and he goes, Alanis said that all of her stuff was gone. And I was like, yeah, no, her room is full. Because also on Monday, me and Sophie had gone into her bedroom, full. All of her furniture is still there, trash bags full of clothes, the monitor, the microwave, all of these things that like, I'll fucking put a picture of this because it was ridiculous. Sorry, to backtrack a little. Chris, when I emailed her all of my stuff, she forwarded me her email communication with Alanis, which was kind of tea, like she didn't have to do that. But Alanis reached out to her on April 1st, asked for a lease break, said the apartment could be empty by April 10th. And so this woman like shows up on April 10th when I was at the gym and they go to look like at the apartment and she sends an email to Alanis and she's like, what the hell is going on here? She's like, this place is fully furnished. There's a cat here. Like, can you please tell me what's happening? Also, you haven't paid April rent, so you owe me money now. Alanis sends her an email basically being like, oh, I let my friend Cars stay there. And like, she was helping me pay rent because I couldn't afford it. But I told her she had to be out. Like, everything that I own is out of the apartment. Anything left is hers. And she goes, here's her phone number and here's her mom's phone number. And that really pissed me off because my mom has never been involved in this at all. The only reason that she has my mom's number is because she came home with me for Christmas. My mother welcomed her into my house as a guest and like bought her Christmas presents and took her to dinner and all of this shit. And I'm like, that was just uncalled for. They called my mom in the middle of a work day and my mom was like, that's ridiculous. Like, I've never been involved in this. Like, fuck that. Anyways, and the landlord kind of writes back and is like, you should never let a friend just stay in your apartment like that. She's like, it's still your responsibility. And I'm like, is this girl stupid? Like, obviously she's still on the lease, even if she lets me stay there. Like, anyways, whatever. Joe comes in and we basically told him, we told Chris that we would be gone by the end of April. And he's like, she said okay. And I was like, no, she didn't necessarily say okay, but she didn't say no. And she's aware that that's what our plan is. So he goes, okay. Leaves. Well, and he was like, good thing that you were here, because if you weren't here, I had instructions to take everything out of the apartment and change the locks. I'm like, yeah, well, thank God we're here too, but at 7:30 in the morning, I'm almost always here, and I'm fucking sleeping, Joe, thank you. So I go in the room with Sophia, she was like sitting there with the cat, tell her everything that happened, and we like go back to bed. Get another knock on the door. It's Joe again. He goes, let me just put Chris on the phone. We'll chat. Puts Chris on speakerphone. He has a number on his phone. $2,575. That is the rent that was due for April that hadn't been paid. And Chris goes, if you guys pay this, you can stay for April. So I kept trying to get Joe to forward me the text message with the number and where to pay it. Because I was like, we're probably going to pay you, but we need to discuss it. Like, I can't do that right now. Like, we need to have a conversation about what this whole plan is. He wouldn't forward me the text. He kept not doing it. And then he's like, no, nothing in writing. He was like, go get a pen and paper. I don't want anything. There can't be anything in writing saying that we're asking for rent money from you. Like, go write it down. It was like a fucking episode of Sopranos too. Because remember, he's like mob boss vibes. So I'm like, this shit's again, all of this happening at fucking 7 a.m. I literally still don't have a bra on. And I'm like, what is happening? Write down the number. I'm like, let me chat with Sophia. And I go, Chris, this $2,575, is that the rent for the entire unit? She's like, yes, that's what it's always been. Me and Sophia had each been paying $1,350. So we'd been paying Alanis $2,700 a month, every month. So not only had she not been paying a penny of our rent, but she had been making $125 off of us every month. Alanis had a $200 a month tanning salon membership. And I was like, how is she affording this? Because she was always talking about how she didn't make any fucking money. She was like an online receptionist for like a dental company. And she was like, I don't make any money. And she would like fucking penny pinch all the time. I remember we were going to go to SantaCon and she didn't buy like a $5 Santa Claus hat because she was like, I need to save my money. And so I was like, how is she affording this like luxury membership? And then she's always DoorDashing these meals. I'm like, DoorDash is expensive. Like, how is she affording all of this? Because I was paying for it. She didn't pay a fucking cent of rent. Not to mention that when I moved in, I was paying $1,600. So I was paying more than half the rent. And her and Leo were each paying like $500 in rent. So she knew from the beginning that she was scamming me. This girl who I brought home for Christmas, would go do volunteering with, like went to Avalanche games with, like traveled upstate with, went to Philadelphia with, like all these things. I was like shook. So Joe leaves, whatever. We're like, okay, Chris, like we'll talk to you. We need to like discuss. Joe leaves and me and Sophie sit there and that's when we start doing the math and we're like, she's been living here for free. This scam has been since the moment that she posted that on Facebook and she's been pretending to be my friend the whole rest of the time. So Joe leaves, whatever, he ends up coming back and he's like, hey, sorry last time. We're like, oh, you fucking basically live here by now. Just come move into the second bedroom. Joe, we're friends now. Gets Chris back on the phone and he goes, look, you guys don't owe us any money. Chris is like, yeah, we don't want you to pay us. They were like, Alanis' dad is the guarantor. We're going to go after him. Because I guess Alanis had stopped responding. So they were like, Francisco Segarra, that's her dad. Like, we're going to go after him. You guys don't owe us any money. They go, how soon can you have her bedroom cleared out so we can start maintenance on it? And then that way, when you guys move out on the 30th, we can do maintenance on the whole house, the whole rest of the house that day and have people move in on the 1st. And we're like, oh my God, thank you, Chris. Like, thank you. We're like, we will like spit shine the place. We'll take all of Alanis' crap out. Like, you know, we like, thank you so much. And I think that they knew, I think that it was kind of obviously strategic for them that they were like needed to pick a battle because me and Sophie were never like, oh, do you need us to move out? We'll leave. We kept kind of being like, we'll leave at the end of the month. We're leaving at the end of the month. So I think that they knew that like, if they wanted to get us out, that was going to be a different fight. So they're like, let's just pick one fight. This bitch has been screwing all of us. So like, let's go after her. Also, she's the one on the lease and her dad signed on to be the guarantor. So they're like, her. We're like, oh my God, of course. Thank you so much. Like, we really appreciate it. And Joe, after the phone call, goes, look, I was the one who told her not to make you guys pay. So he goes, the maintenance guys are going to come in and they're going to fix this bedroom on Monday. Tip them. He's like, they technically can't take tips, so you give them an envelope, cash inside, my name on it. All of us are gonna split it. Once again, like fucking Soprano shit. I'm like, you got it, Joey. I'll, you know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, I guess. But I'd rather pay him, you know, whatever, $500, whatever, than a whole month of rent. So he leaves. We're like, okay, that's our good karma just for the fact that like we had been honest this whole time about, you know, like what had been happening. And like genuinely it's funny because we kept making jokes being like, Alanis is lucky that we're not really crazy and that we're not like selling off her shit. And we're like, we fucking should have from the beginning because we're at the apartment with everything that she owns and she'd been ripping us off this whole time. So Anyways, we take like 3 bags of her stuff to consignment stores in Brooklyn, and we're like, we're gonna get money, we're gonna sell the microwave, we're gonna sell all of it, because we also have this email of her being like, everything left in the apartment isn't mine, it belongs to Caroline, who's been staying there. So we're like, perfect, if this all belongs to me, I'm gonna sell it. And we're like, we'll give the money as the tip money to the guys. Take a bunch of clothes in, whatever, go to work. On Wednesday at this point, Sophie calls me while I'm at work. I'm outside of Ben and swim lessons in the car, and she's like, Leo's here, bro. She showed up, she let herself in, and they're taking stuff. And when she said that, I literally saw red, because I was like, I told this bitch not to come into our house and like try to take stuff. And at this point, we've finally got everything squared away. We're finally about to like fucking win or have this be over with. And this bitch shows back up. So I'm like, Sophie, go kick her out. Go tell them you're going to call the cops. But God bless Sophie. She's like too sweet. And I'm on the phone with her and she's like, please leave, guys. And I'm trying to feed Sophie lines and be like, no, not please. Tell them to get the fuck out of our house. Tell them you're going to call the police, bro. And she's like, please, guys, like, please just leave. And I'm like, Sophia, fucking yell at them. I'm like, put me on speakerphone. So she puts me on speakerphone and I start yelling at them to leave. It's Leo and her fucking boyfriend. And I start being like, leave that shit behind. It's ours now, and get the fuck out of my apartment. And they start being like, oh, like, whatever happened with you and Alanis, like, we don't know anything about that. Like, that was like between you guys, like, that has nothing to do with us. And that's when I fucking snapped. And I was like, fuck you, Leo. You knew all along. This whole fucking time you knew. And the look on her face when I said that, it literally looked like her soul left her body. And mind you, also, Leo is someone who's been recently hospitalized and like diagnosed bipolar and like had to fly home because of a psychotic break. Like, of course I don't want you breaking into my house with the fucking keys that you're not supposed to have. So then, as they're leaving, I am like screaming at them, like red in the face, screaming at them. And Leo starts shaking and being like, I can't move. Like, I need water. And I'm like, go get your own fucking water. This isn't a charity service. Like, this isn't your house anymore. Like, leave. Like, literally, she's 3 steps away from the door. I'm like, just get out of the apartment. Have your mental breakdown in the fucking hallway, dude. Like, I'm so over it. I was like, Sophie, call the fucking police. And so they end up leaving, like, after Leo I don't know if she was faking it, but she has this whole like mental breakdown. And I just had no sympathy because I was like, you put yourself into this situation. Was picking up that fucking microwave worth it for you? Like, dude. So I sent her a really nasty text message and then blocked her number because I was like, I'm over that. Blocked her on Instagram. I'm like, fuck you, don't try to act innocent. Like, you were in on this from the beginning because you were the one looking for someone on Facebook to lease this apartment for double the fucking rent. Or more than half when they were living with 3 people. Anyways. Tell Sophie to call the cops. She calls the cops. Basically, they're like, there's nothing we can really do. They were like, if you had called us when they were in the apartment, if they didn't have proof of purchase for what they were taking, then they would have been arrested. I'm like, motherfucker, I wish. Like, I don't even want, like, to necessarily, like, press charges by any means, but I'm like, if they could just put them in handcuffs for a little and just scare them. Like, I just hate being fucked with. I really do. I don't like it when people disrespect my boundaries and stuff like that. So I was like, I just want them to be fucking scared. Anyways, you might think that's ironic after me going into Alanis' bedroom and everything. But anyways, so that was like the peak for me. Like, this whole time I'd found the whole thing kind of like entertaining and funny, where I was just like, how far is this gonna go? Like, how deep did she dig herself a hole? And then them just like showing up to my apartment and we're like, give us the fucking keys back. And she was like, I don't know where the keys are. And we're like, you just use them to get in. Like, give us the fucking keys. Anyways, so the cops were like, we really can't do anything. But I still kind of want to like chat with my little lawyer friend and just tell him the whole story and be like, do I have any sort of case here? Maybe I don't. I don't know. But I just like, that's insane that she was like acting like such a friend to my face. Met like so many of my friends, like met my family, was like even talking about like moving to Colorado at some point. And my parents were like, you're welcome back whenever. Like, just insane. I'm like listening to her like cry about boys and like watch tarot card readings of like her crush's moon rising. And I'm just like, this whole fucking time she knew that she was screwing me for money. Like, there were nights, especially when I first moved to the city and I didn't have a job and my rent was $1,600. There were nights where I was crying myself to sleep not knowing how I was going to pay that. And she's like Venmo requesting me for like mango. And I'm like, I don't know. It was so absurd. It was just like every time that you thought it was going to be done, it got worse. And yeah, so that is the story of my first roommate in New York City. It's funny, I talked to my therapist and she was like, do you think you're ever going to get a random roommate again? And I was like, yes, babe. My lease ends at the end of the month. I'm going to need one very soon. I'm just going to get a lock on my door this time and make sure that the landlord knows that I'm going to be living there. But lessons learned, I feel like those were some very adult lessons that I had to learn about trust and legality and leases and money. So in a sense, lucky that I got out of it decently unscathed and that now I know better. But yeah, fuck that bitch Alanis. And if any of you are going to do work or business or have a friendship with Alanis Segura, I would suggest not to. Not worth it. In fact, it might cost you thousands of dollars. It's funny too, because I remember doing the math at a certain point and being like, if we both pay $1,350 and she's paying $1,500, $1,600, like this apartment is $4,200. And like, it was a tiny apartment, like 5th floor walk up, no air conditioning and no dishwasher, no laundry, no sitting room, no living room. And so I remember kind of being like, I wonder who the hell's like paying that much to live here. Also, there were several times, like, right when I moved in that I kind of, like, noticed that she never told me how much the apartment, like, cost for the whole thing. And I kind of thought that that was weird, but I was like, maybe she's just weird about talking about money. Like, maybe she's just not open about that. I'm like, stupid bitch, she wasn't telling you because she was ripping you off. Anyways, also, there was a time when I was, like, really stressed about paying rent and being like, I'm going to have to leave the city. Like, I'm not going to be able to stay here. Like, you're going to need to find someone else to live here if I don't get a job soon. And she was like, oh, well, like, maybe I can talk to my dad and, like, we can work something out about rent. And by that, she meant that she was maybe going to start paying some of the rent. Like, the audacity. I'm just so happy that me and Sophia didn't pay her another cent, because we would never have seen any of our security deposit again. She was going to wait to the end of the lease, guaranteed, move out, disappear back to Puerto Rico, and I was never going to see or hear from her again, and she was going to pocket that money. In fact, the fact that she didn't pay any of April rent to our landlord tells me that she probably already spent that money and that it had been gone for a long time. So yeah, Alanis is just like actually the scum of the earth. If you're friends with me and you follow her on Instagram, I'm requiring you to unfollow her right now. Maybe that sounds petty. I don't know. But like, fuck that bitch. That's actually absurd. That's actually absurd to treat people that way. I'm like, she's just a scam artist. She's a con artist. I wonder how many people she's been lying to in the past. I wonder if when the landlord reached out to her dad, if he knew about all of this or if she was lying to him as well and it was just his name and his credit score that was at stake. I don't know. It's actually absurd to me that there's kids, especially like kids my age. Like she was like 2 weeks younger than me. Like I thought we were just kind of cut from the same cloth, like in a very similar situation. And I just like the fact that I wrestled so hard with like not paying her rent money because I like really didn't want to screw her over. Like if I had known this the whole time, I'm just really happy that we stood our ground enough to like have the whole truth come out. And like if we had just packed up and left because we're like, oh no, an eviction notice, bye, like we never would have found all of this out and like her plan would have worked, which is kind of crazy. But I made it very clear from the beginning with her that like I was going to stand my ground and that like I knew what my rights were and that, you know, she was going to kind of have to work with me. But insanity, actually insanity. I floored, no words. Moreover, thinking about the fact that me and Sophia were paying for the entire unit plus some, the fact that she even locked us out of her bedroom when we were the only ones paying rent to live there, like ridiculous. And honestly, she probably would have gotten away with this whole thing if it weren't for locking the bedroom and acting sussy. Like if she had just gone to Puerto Rico, left her bedroom unlocked, like been super chill, we would have paid April rent, paid May rent, moved out. She could have kept the deposit and then been like, fuck us then. We would have had no idea. But honestly, the reason that I started standing up to her was the fact that I felt like betrayed as a friend, that I had treated her as a friend and then she turned around and started treating me like a random roommate. And so when I made the decision to like not pay her any more money, it felt really dramatic at the time, and I was like, I don't really know if this all warrants it, but like I can't describe it. Like I really just don't trust her. Like I don't think I'm gonna get my money back. And so that's why I started, not because I was like, this all seems fishy. It had to do with just the way that she was treating me personally. So I'm like, you would have gotten away with it too if you didn't start being shady, because I had little red flags, but I really was not connecting the dots until the very end. Also, remember, Alanis was trying to sublease her room. She would have been making, if she was subleasing out for $1,500 like she was to me, she would have been making $1,700 a month just from lying and cheating and scamming people that thought that she was being honest. I guess that's the point of lying, is that people think that you're being honest. But dude, she was going to sublease it to one of our friends, Jamie, and I'm just like so fucking happy that Jamie didn't get involved in this whole thing. Like she really dodged a bullet there. in hindsight, Alanis didn't want her boyfriend moving in because he would have known the scam. He would have known, Leo knew how much the rent was from before I moved in, so she wouldn't have been able to scam the boyfriend. And this whole time I thought it was like, oh, she just doesn't want to move in with like a couple. Like nobody wants a third wheel couple in the place that they live. No, it's because she wasn't going to be able to scam this guy into paying her rent because Leo knew. And now I'm in San Diego at like two of my best friends from college's house. And it's my first time getting to see them in forever because I didn't have money because I was paying so much money in rent. Anyways, besides the point, I'm very happy to be here. The weather's gorgeous. I go to Coachella in 2 hours and I'm just going to enjoy the sun and have a break. And from now on, I'm just going to be thankful for roommates who maybe even if they don't do the dishes, at least they're not making me pay their rent. So, yeah. Give me a call if you want to discuss because I would love to hear from all of you.